Hey guys, gals, non-binary pals, before we get into the video, I would love for you to check out the cool new shirt that I'm wearing. So this is releasing today for all of those people that get scammed, all of us that feel like all these influencers, all they do is see us. When they see us in this shirt, right? They just see us trying to get scammed. If you would like to support me, it also has the logo on the back. This is officially live, so when this video is going out, you can pick up the shirt up to a size 5XL, international shipping, so wherever you are in the world, you can pick one up. Is it a real shirt or is it a scam? I don't know. You order it and you'll find out. All right, so today what we're going to be talking about, wow, it's an intense video, actually. I know that was kind of just joking around, but it's an intense one, so be ready for that. So the video that we're going to be talking about is from the YouTuber Kiana Dockery, and she did a video speaking about Alivia DeAndrea. If you don't know, I have many videos about the topic, so you guys can check those out if you want to. But basically, I don't really need to explain much because she does a great job in explaining everything herself. So we're just going to get into it. The title of the video is Alivia DeAndrea, The Ugly Truth About Self-Criticism. Alrighty? So, here we go.
Society tells us that we need to be kinder to ourselves by using daily positive affirmations, taking bubble baths, and eating a donut because you deserve it. I used to think that was self-love, but it's not what I needed. And it never helped me change. All my life, I've been weak. I was weak, I was lazy, I was undisciplined.
I'm kind of shocked that I let myself get to this point. I mean, this is so embarrassing to admit.
I remember when this stuff came out and like watching it, oh, it was hard to watch, but we'll keep going.
Alivia DeAndrea came off as very self-critical in her Glow Up Diary series, and as a fellow self-critic.
Before we get into it, I just want to say Kiana does such a great job in this video. Please go support her. I'm sure most of you guys know who she is, but fantastic. Like, this video is like very emotional for me, and we'll get into it. But she did a fantastic job. So props to her. This is just really good.
It made me wonder, does self-criticism actually help us lose weight? And does it help us change our behavior in general? I know I'm extremely late on this, but I wanted to comment on it because when I watched it, it really brought me back to some of my worst days binge eating. And
I can agree. And so that's why this is so intense for me. But
I think this is because I could relate to how harsh she was with herself.
But before we get into it, a big thank you to Built Bar for...
Sorry, Kiana, we're not going to watch your ad, but do your thing, you know?
Self-criticism can be defined as negative self-evaluations that manifest through internal attacks and put-downs, otherwise known as beating ourselves up.
One thing, sorry, I just laughed at, I didn't catch that the first time I watched this. But this is like one thing that I really get frustrated with is when people are like, oh, I'm just giving them tough love. Like, they need to lose weight. They're a fat piece of crap. And if they hear that they're a fat piece of crap from me, that's going to motivate them to change. And I personally have never had that feeling. This is why I always say, don't change from a place of self-hate. Change from a place of self-love. Like, if you love yourself enough to change, that usually leads to better things happening and you using better tools to actually make that change versus I hate myself, I'm a piece of garbage, and then you do really unhealthy things to make that change happen. The change might happen, but for a lot of people that go down that road, a lot of times that change doesn't last very long, right? That's why I'm so against that type of thinking.
I think you seriously wonder as to how someone can let themselves get like this.
I realized that this disgusting state had become my new comfort zone.
Most of us would never be so dismissive to someone else, and yet we think nothing of doing it to ourselves.
Yep, exactly. It's like, could you imagine calling someone else disgusting? Like, if you're a relatively good person, like, you wouldn't do that, right? But I think that, especially for me, it was so normal for me to self-criticize because that was how I fit in with people, right? Because I was the funny fat guy. So being the funny fat guy, like, I had to make fun of myself. So that just became my normal mode of working. It was like, I make fun of myself to fit in. And then that becomes a very normal thing for you to do for the rest of your life, which is what I've dealt with, and trust me, still deal with every single day.
But why do we do it? Well, self-criticism is often used as a self-correction tool, a way of motivating ourselves toward a desirable state, behavior, or goal, or away from an undesirable one. Like Alivia clearly is, self-criticizers are often ambitious and report thinking that being less critical would make them feel lazy, less responsible, weaker, and ultimately hinder their ability to achieve their goals.
We associate self-criticism with accountability, an honest evaluation of our efforts, self-discipline, and holding ourselves up to our own standards.
You hear, like, I'm just being honest with myself, right? I'm just being honest about what people really think about me. That's what you hear a lot as well.
And we may even think that people or society in general who eschew self-criticism just don't really get it or are too soft. And I know because that is how I felt, and it kind of seems like Olivia might feel the same way.
Like, everyone is models. Like, where are all the average people like me on TikTok?
Why do you keep calling yourself average?
Because I do look average. I'm sorry, I'm a little below average at this moment in time.
I see so much of the same stuff that I used to do in Olivia. Self-criticism was pretty much my go-to technique for my entire life up until very recently. And even then, I'm still finding that fine line. I used to think that in some scenarios, being anything less than critical was the equivalent to being dishonest. And the only thing that ever got me to stop, or at least attempt to stop, was my discovery that it's probably not very effective and potentially even a little bit dangerous when it comes to weight loss and binge eating.
100%. Like, what I always say is, does dwelling on the past actually make you better, right? There's a difference between realizing and looking back at things that happened and analyzing that situation and thinking, okay, what caused me to do X, Y, Z, right? Talking about binging, this is something that I talk a lot about. But if instead you are just dwelling on the fact that you binged, and now you are constantly saying, I'm a piece of crap, I binged, I'm worthless, I'm useless, I'm this, I'm that, I'm all of those things, does that actually help? Does it really help? No, it might feel good at the time because it feels good to be mean to yourself, but at the end of the day, are you actually making progress by doing that? The answer normally is no, right?
First off, it often leads to the painful emotion of shame.
I mean, it's been going on for so many years, and I've let myself down so many times that, like, I just don't trust myself anymore.
It's so hard to even see myself in this state. I'm just angry at myself.
I think about how I think about myself, and it's not nice. It has never really affected me, but lately it has been.
Shame,
I'm sorry. The crying on camera, I will just never be. I never know how to act. I'm sorry.
highly unpleasant, self-conscious emotion, arising from the sense of there being something contemptible, ridiculous, or generally wrong with us as a person. It also involves an awareness of how other people view the self, and is linked to a diminished sense of social worth, sometimes leading to a withdrawal from social interactions.
I want to isolate myself from the world. That's not an indicator of how low I feel now. The fact that I don't even want to FaceTime people.
Yeah.
Shame shares many similarities with the emotion of guilt. However, though some researchers argue that guilt is a healthy adaptive emotion, many researchers are arguing that shame offers no such benefits, with the most famous proponent of this theory being best-selling author and researcher Brené Brown.
Shame drives two big takes.
Brené Brown has some like really good like TED Talks on this stuff. There's also a book. I forget exactly what it's called, but there's a lot of really good information about this that, like, again, I still struggle with this quite a bit, but it helped me kind of understand the difference between shame and guilt, which she'll go into, but yeah.
Never good enough, and if you can talk it out of that one, who do you think you are? The thing to understand about shame is it's not guilt.
So this is really interesting, right? Never good enough. So that's something, again, of course, I'm going to bring it back to weight loss. A lot of people that struggle with weight loss, myself included, is I'm not, like, I'm not good enough to lose weight. Like, why would I even try? Am I even worth it, right? Like, that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I did as well. And then it's like, who do I think I am even trying this, or even like really thinking that I can? Like, are you kidding me? Who are you, right? Like, that's something that plays in my head all the time still, but now based on what I do now, which is make videos. But that's another story. But, you know, I was able to get over that with weight loss. I still struggle with it in other aspects of my life.
Shame is a focus on self. Guilt is a focus on behavior. Shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad.
So let's pause there for a second. Shame is I am bad. Guilt is I've done something bad.
Guilt, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Shame, I'm sorry, I am a mistake.
Ugh. The first time I watched that, I was like, I felt like I got stabbed. Ugh. Because the amount of times I've said that, that sentence right there, too many times, all right? Too many times.
I realized in that moment this sadness was caused by who I was as a person.
Shame is essentially the feeling that we are unacceptable or inferior to others in some way. And what the research is showing is that when we think our mistakes happen because of something is wrong with us globally, as opposed to something just being wrong with our behavior, we're less likely to take reparative action to fix those problems.
We're less motivated, things feel hopeless, and we're more likely to just give up and pack it in.
I was feeling hopeless about change. Afterwards, I went to Whole Foods to eat my third dinner of the night before going to bed.
Perhaps this is why self-criticizers are significantly more likely to binge eat.
A voice whispered to me, "This isn't
This part's really important, so make sure you're listening.
gonna last. Just like every other healthy habit you attempted to develop, you're gonna fail again."
According to one study, 95% of ED sufferers reported suffering with a critical inner voice.
95% struggle with a critical inner voice. 95% of people with EDs.
Compared to only 29% of healthy controls.
Here we go again. Thanks for believing in the best of me, but as of right now, I don't even believe in myself.
When observed following a self-critical attack, those high in self-criticism often felt beat down, weak, and unable to counter their own attacks. Self-criticism also has a very well-documented relationship with EDs and binge eating. Fanning et al. Found that self-criticism is not only an independent and robust predictor of EDs, but also the severity of those EDs.
And self-criticism has even been shown to precede binge eating episodes. And actually, in Alivia's series, we see this link documented several times.
I experienced anxiety for the first time in my life at a 6 p.m. yoga class. In the middle of a Warrior One pose, I thought about eating after class. I told that voice in my head, "No, you've already eaten too much today, you're full." I suddenly felt panic rush through my mind and body.
You can see here.
So this is, like, I remember when I watched this, I know a lot of people say, oh, Alivia has said that she doesn't have an ED. We're going to get into that after this video because that's a whole nother thing. But this is why when I talked to, the last video I put up was with Trisha Paytas, right? They were saying that they struggle with binging, and that's when I explained the whole thing with Mr. Calorie Deficit back there. And you feel like, I remember I would feel bad and I would start to criticize myself, and that was the skeleton, that was the person getting a hold of me. And then once the time they actually got a hold of me, it was game over, because I would just be like, oh my gosh, like you should be more disciplined, you shouldn't allow yourself to do this, you're a piece of garbage. And then those feelings would turn into, well, you're a piece of garbage, so might as well just do it anyways. And then that was the switch for me that would always lead to binging.
In Alivia, a cycle. She seems to have a craving, feel anxiety about having that craving, begin criticizing herself for the whole thing, and then finally, she binges. Now, a craving is an involuntary automatic act, but unfortunately for people dealing with binge eating, it also often brings a cascade of self-criticism, being angry at yourself for even having the craving, which again is totally involuntary, and the fear and shame at potentially binging once again. I know when it would happen to me, it would be like this thing of like, okay, here we go again. Am I gonna succeed this time? Am I gonna fail? Oh, I'm probably gonna fail. Kiana, you're gonna fail. And then I would binge. This powerful feeling.
Exactly.
of shame and anxiety grabs our attention, and then we start ruminating. We start thinking about it in a negative, cyclical way. And at the same time, we're kind of anticipating and getting excited about the food reward. So we kind of have this cocktail of like excitement and fear working together to undermine our resolve to not binge eat.
This is, oh man, this is such a good explanation of everything, because this is why when people say just don't do it, or it's just like thoughts that you have to change. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. That's one of the biggest issues I had with Olivia's first like go at the whole diet diaries or whatever it was called, transformation diaries or glow up diaries. Sorry. Was I was like, it is not this simple. Like, it is not that simple. It's just like, just stop it. Just stop doing it. I'm like, I wish it was that simple. Trust me. I wish it was. But I promise you, it's not that simple. Not that many people will be struggling with this if it was just like, just don't do it, right?
I went to a ballet performance with a friend. We agreed to get dessert after the performance. During the performance, the thoughts about that dessert taunted me. I felt so embarrassed that I couldn't enjoy the performance because I was so fixated on the dessert. After the performance, my friend said she didn't want the dessert anymore. I was silently devastated, and my singular goal was to ditch my friend as soon as possible so I could go buy dessert. I had tunnel vision, and I started to choose food over friendships.
Then on top of this, when you actually eat the food, it soothes the motivational state, aka it acts as the solution to the problem, linking them together and making it that much harder again to resist the next time, i.e. creating a habit. And on top of that, these intense negative emotions, as well as the tunnel vision, the being focused on this situation, they deplete cognitive resources needed to act rationally.
Well, it's just so hard because you end up, when you end up giving into that binge, you are so high. Like, you feel high. Like, when you are eating the food, it feels like euphoria, right? It is like as high as you can get. But then right when you're done, you are as low as you can get. And then when you wake up the next morning, you are as low as you can get. And so it's like this crazy roller coaster, just up and down and up and down and up and down, that you feel out of control, right? You do not feel like you are in control of your own body, which adds to so much of feeling like there's nothing I can do about this. I can't even control myself. And then it leads to you thinking the same thing. I am worthless. I can't even, like, that's why it's not just stop eating. It's like, dude, shut up, okay? That is not advice. That's garbage. That's caca-dookie, okay?
Again, a third factor depleting our ability to control ourselves in this scenario.
Several theories of binge eating posit that the act of binging may provide an escape, a way of tuning out and self-soothing when faced with negative emotions, or even a way to temporarily disassociate from awareness of the pressure of one's perceived flaws. Self-criticism and shame simultaneously undermine control of eating behavior and stimulate pathological eating behaviors like extreme restriction at the same time.
In other words, they can create a shame binge cycle. And even if you're not a binge eater, another study demonstrated that among participants in a weight loss program, those who ranked the highest for self-criticism and shame lost the least amount of weight.
Yet another study found that among individuals without ED tendencies, participants who were induced to experience shame had higher levels of caloric consumption than those who were not.
And even if you're not struggling with food or your weight at all, self-criticism and shame significantly predicts lower overall goal progress.
So basically what we're hearing here is F shame, all right? F shame. All my homies hate shame.
Quote, study after study shows that self-criticism is consistently associated with less motivation and worse self-control.
I hope that this video has convinced at least somebody that self-criticism is not the answer. I personally literally used to think that I probably wasn't being self-critical enough of my own actions. But now looking back, I know that it was one of the biggest factors, if not the biggest factor, that really kept me stuck right where I was for as long as I was.
So this is what she's explaining here. This is why I'm such a big fan of not labeling foods. And when people hear that have never struggled with binging, they're like, that's ridiculous. Of course a cookie is worse than an apple. Like, that's dumb. And it's like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. But if you're a person that if you eat the cookie, you now aren't just like, oh, that's a bad food. You eat it, and then you all of a sudden are now bad, right? And then it just triggers you to be like, well, I'm already bad, so I might as well continue to eat the bad foods. That's why I'm such a big fan of not labeling foods like that, and just understanding, like, a cookie might be less nutritionally, it might be more nutritionally void of things than an apple, but not thinking like that and just being like, it's a cookie, and I had a cookie, and now I can move on, instead of thinking I had a bad thing, now I am a bad thing. That is the cycle that just keeps going. That's why I'm such a fan of not labeling foods like that. And that's why I don't like having cheat days or cheat meals, because when I have that thought of this is a cheat meal, it makes me feel bad because I cheated, right? Like, that's why I don't like to eat that way. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going off topic. Let's keep going.
Because I was so cruel to myself, because I was constantly being critical of my own actions, I wasn't able to think rationally about, hey, maybe I have a problem here that I'm not going about dealing with the right way. It never occurred to me that maybe I should be a little bit nicer to myself to get a different result. And all of that could have been avoided had I just been a little bit more compassionate toward myself, rather than condemning myself for something that I was trying earnestly to change but didn't have the skills to do so yet. I don't think that all self-criticism is a bad thing, but I do think that a large chunk, if not most people, are not good at using it in a positive way. We all know people who don't self-criticize at all and also don't hold themselves accountable for anything. And clearly this is an undesirable trait.
So, and I love that she brought this up because it's important. Like, we're talking about this stuff, but at the same time, I don't think the answer is to be like, everything is sunshine and rainbows and anything hard should be avoided, right? Like, there are times when going into hard things, that are going into difficult things, going into those things head on is not a bad thing. But it's like, if you're always constantly doing that and always constantly saying you're not good enough, that's where the problem lies. Instead of just like, the answer isn't like, oh, well, I'm just going to lay on the couch all day and not do anything that's hard because I don't want to be self-critical, That's not the answer either.
But I just think there's a very, very fine line between being honest and objective about one's own actions and beating yourself up to the point of it not even being a helpful tool. And I think that a lot of people are just not good at walking that line, myself included. Now, I don't want to get too much into it because we were just covering self-criticism in this moment, but I wanted to give you guys something to Google if you are interested to what people are saying is like the antidote or the better way than self-criticism. And that is self-compassion. When I first discovered this concept, I thought it was a little too like woo-woo for me. I thought it didn't really resonate with me or my values. However, I want to point out that it's a lot different than self-kindness. It's not glossing over your mistakes. It's not, telling yourself you did good when you actually did awfully. It is an open, honest, and non-judgmental appraisal of self.
I like that because it's still an appraisal. It's not an acceptance, right? It's not an open and honest acceptance of self. It's still an appraisal. So you're still looking at things and taking inventory, right? But you're not just being like, yeah, it's all good, man, It's all good. Yeah, I totally did all those things that I didn't want to, but it's okay, It's not like that. It's still holding yourself accountable.
It's about making a mistake and then committing to learning from it, but in a non-judgmental way. And if you have my guide, you know that this is actually a big part of it. And this has been a really instrumental tool for me in my process of learning how to control my own behavior. Instead of being just totally savage when I mess up, I can stop and just try and evaluate it and learn from my mistake as opposed to just being like, you idiot. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope we provided a case to stop self-criticizing so much if you are a current self-criticizer like myself. If anything, the only thing that got me to stop doing it was just the realization that, hey, whether or not I think I deserve it, it's not effective. So why would I keep using that strategy?
So I really like that she said that, right? Whether or not I deserve it or not, it's not effective. It doesn't change anything, right? So that was a great video. So I want to bring up a video that Alivia has actually uploaded, and this was uploaded yesterday. So, or was it today? This was uploaded today. And Kiana's video was uploaded about a week ago. All right. But so the title of this is very interesting. The title of Kiana's video is Alivia DeAndrea, The Ugly Truth About Self-Compassion or Self-Criticism. And then Olivia's title of her video is The Ugly Truth of Shame. So kind of interesting, okay? But we're not going to go over the entire video. It's 18 minutes of a lot of ranting, but there are a few things, a few parts of the video that I think are important that I kind of want to talk about, okay? So the first thing is right here. Thank you so much for the follow. Is right here. And we're just going to let it play and see what she has to say, all right?
Before I go any further with this, I'd like to clarify once and for all to all my viewers. Yes, I had binge eating disorder in Glow Up Diaries Season 1 and the beginning of Season 2. Yes, I'm going to finish posting Season 2. Now, the reason I have never come out and said that, to save time, I don't want to get into why I didn't want to label myself, but if you want to hear my story about having binge eating disorder and being a social media personality, comment below. People ask me...
Okay, so we're not going to play too much. We're not going to play too much of her video because I'll get striked. But that was something because I knew if people weren't familiar, they would watch her video, Kiana's, and be like, oh, well, Alivia had the whole time said that she didn't have an ED. And so there she is actually saying that she did, which, you know, for most people that have dealt with it, it was like, it seems like, because I don't like to diagnose people, so I'm like, I'm not going to diagnose her, but like, from things I've dealt with and the things that she was saying in the video, it was very, very interesting, right? And like one of the biggest problems I had was in my videos where I was critical of her was most of it honestly actually wasn't critical to her if you watch the actual video, but most of it was actually me being critical of kind of the things that she was saying. So it was like I don't have BED. It's like, oh, it's just a shame thing. And then she went on this whole thing about how to fix shame in your head. And I was just like, all right. So that was one of the things. And then the other thing that I wanted to share was it's at 13 minutes in this video. So let's go here. Yeah. So it's titled Hate Videos About Glow Up Diaries Season 2. So she kind of brings me up and Kiana as well as Abby Sharp actually. So let's watch this.
So then I just got lost with the messaging. I was like, wait, this seems like it's too heavily focused on mental toughness and weight loss. Like this isn't what the Glow Up Diaries is. It doesn't feel right. It's not what I lived. So here's me, very lost with my messaging, and then all these people coming at me.
Okay, so she says, all of these people coming at me, right? And this is labeled hate. So we're like hating on what she's saying. So it's interesting because you can see here, we have Kiana's video, which was uploaded, I don't know, a few days before this was uploaded. And you can see that she's watched a good amount of the video, right? And then there's my video, and then Abby Sharp's comes up as well. So what's frustrating to me is that I truly believe that my videos and Abby's, and especially Kiana's, were not hateful videos by any means. And so it's just frustrating being labeled as that, as just like hate videos, when I feel like people were bringing up very like pointed criticism, and especially Abby Sharp and my videos were mainly focused on the Steve Zim guy. If you don't know, it was about this like terrible advice that he was giving. It was terrible advice, and I will stand behind that. And if Steve Zim wants to make a video saying I'm being hateful to him, that would make more sense, okay? Because the advice was so bad. It was advice from like the 70s and 80s that they're giving to people that are struggling, as Alivia said, with BED, right? And the information he was giving was garbage. It was terrible. So yes, I'm going to call that out. I don't think that that's me hating on Alivia or Abby Sharp hating on Alivia, or especially as the whole video we just watched, I don't think that Kiana was hating on it. And the fact that okay, I'm getting a little frustrated, but the fact that she could go and watch more than half of this video and still claim that this is like a hate video and throw it in here, I just feel like that's a little disingenuous, and that's really frustrating to me, right? Don't scam me, all right? You're scamming me. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. There's honestly, this video, there's not much to go over. It's just kind of explaining everything that's going on, and explaining all of the reasons why the Glow Up Diaries has been so all over the place and all this stuff. At the end of the day, like, if you put something online, like, people are going to share their thoughts on it. And I don't think that just because people are being critical of the videos that you're putting out, that means they are being haters or hate. It's hate. I mean, especially, like, you can claim mine is, that's fine, right? If you want to say that. But, like, to say that Kiana's video was hate is just so ridiculous to me. And, like, I don't know. I'm sorry, but it didn't feel like that at all to me. And so, I don't know. That's all I have to say about that. But I mean, mainly I wanted to share Kiana's video because I thought that it was absolutely fantastic, and I felt like it really hit a lot of parts that I've dealt with as well, that I still struggle with. But yeah, so that's my opinion. Great video. Cool.